So in this class, we will be participating. It is a requirement of this course that you do a lot of writing and a lot of thinking. It's a requirement. You haven't signed up for a course that you just sit and listen. This is a course where there's going to be a lot of writing and thinking, and all of that goes into your binder, and it's going to be graded during your site visit at the very end. We're going to do a lot of collaboration on Facebook, especially. During this 3-hour session together, if you need to take a potty break, go take a potty break. But come back. Don't stay there. Come back. Know that we are all infant toddler teachers in here. Respect each other for being an infant toddler teacher and for being an awesome human being for being with infants and toddlers. This one's going to get me. It says, be cautious when using humor and sarcasm. I love sarcasm. I have to work hard on it, y'all, but I will do my best. And if I can do my best on it, so can you. Also, this is being recorded. So while we're sharing stories with each other about fun things that happened in our classroom, you need to make sure not to use children's actual names. Don't use your center's name on here as well, because this is going to be on Facebook for people that are in this class that want to revisit it. And you don't want a random parent to stumble across it and say, I knew my teacher thought that about my child. Don't go there. Does anybody have questions about this? If you do, shout out. No? Okay. This is me giving wait time. I know I'm supposed to wait for people to respond after I ask a question, so that's how I count for myself. All right. I am now going to put you all into groups. I would like you, when you're in your groups, to introduce yourself to your group, who you are, where you work, what age group you teach, any fun facts. That part will not be recorded, so you can feel free to share where you teach and your age group and stuff. So I am going to put you in groups, and then once the group time is over, I will be bringing you back. All right, so Zoom call's gone wrong. For those of you that are new to Zoom, welcome. For those of you that have been on Zoom for a while, you know sometimes things go wrong on Zoom. Sometimes your internet connection will say too slow. Your internet connection is unstable. If this happens, what are some things you can do to fix it? First, you can ask the other people in your house to stop streaming movies and stop streaming video games while you're on the call. That will help. If that doesn't help enough, you can turn off your video, and that should help. And that should do it. If not, you can hang up and dial, come back in again. Sometimes that'll fix it. All right. You will have the Zoom link prior to the class, but if for some reason you don't get it, you can always text me and say, I need it, or ask one of your coworkers. A lot of you have multiple people from your center here. So you all can make sure you have the correct Zoom link for the day. So Zoom has some features and icons it uses. So at the first line here, you can see mute and video. Those are for what I can see and hear. So if your video is on, I can see whatever your camera is showing. If your mute is off, I can hear you. So if you look at your little face in the screen, if it has the microphone that's red with a mark through it, that means I can't hear you. And you can just push mute again to be turned on. So the share screen, we're not going to be doing that in this class, so you don't have to worry about that. The chat button, we will be using chat, so you need to find it. If you're on a telephone, you have 3 dots. And 3 dots, if you click on it, will show you chat as an option. For raising a hand or for doing an emoji, there's a reactions button. And if you have to leave the meeting for any reason, there's a leave meeting button. All right. So we're going to try one more time for the breakout group. It's going to be about 3 or 4 minutes again. This time you are going to be sharing why you chose to get a CDA credential. All right. So here's our inspirational quote of the morning. The only impossible journey is the one you never start. All right. So at some times this class might seem like it's a lot, but we're going to work together and we have a lot of things in place to make you successful in this class. If you do the things that are in place, you will never get behind on anything. You will have somebody always check over what you write and what you do to make sure you're confident that it's good. And you won't have any problems. The only thing that you will be completely responsible for by yourself is reading this textbook. I am not going to read the textbook with you. You have to do that by yourself. It's a big textbook. And we're going to go over how it's going to get broken down into manageable pieces. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the course requirements. You have the textbook and the yellow book, and you have a lovely binder. I would like you to get your binder and put it in front of you. You don't have to hold it up, just put it in front of you so you can access it, please. And give everybody a minute to run around and find their binder. If you left it in your car, now's the time to put on some shoes, maybe some pants, and go find that binder. Depends where you live. Maybe you don't need the pants to go outside. I don't know. All right, find the binder, bring it back, open it. All right, y'all. You leave these pages in, but I'm going to take them out just to talk to you about it. The first page in your binder looks like this. Everybody should have this. Matter of fact, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to pull up that page itself so we can all look at it together. All right. This is your syllabus. You don't need to worry about what the word syllabus means. It's not really that important. It's just something I used to teach at a university, and it's just a word that stuck with me. This is your roadmap to the course, okay? At the top here, can you all see this where I'm moving the cursor? Okay, good. We have the mandatory meeting. That's what you're in right now. Mandatory means you have to come, okay? Then we have the topic, and then we have the homework section. All right. For those of you that I can see you on the screen, hold up how many fingers, how many hours is mandatory each Saturday? You should be holding up 3 fingers. Charisma, I appreciate this. That makes it more fun. All right, 3. Now look at the required homework. It's 4 to 5 hours. That's on top of the 3, okay? If you were in my in-person class, you would be doing the homework with me in person, most of it, okay? But we're not in person. The class is much shorter, so you are responsible for finding the hours in your week to get the rest of the class done. I'm going to go down a little bit. Oops. All right, so here's today. It has our Zoom meeting. It has our mandatory class time from 9 to 12. You will notice underneath it, we have an optional study hall time. I don't know if any of y'all did study hall in high school, but that was a time they pretty much put you in the gym or put you in a classroom and said, you know what, everybody just be quiet and work on your homework. That's not what this study hall is. This study hall is, let's do it together and figure it out together. Because if you have a question, somebody else will have the same question. We can talk about it together and we can write it as a group. Since it's optional, do you have to do it with me? But you still have to do the homework, okay? So if you choose to go out to lunch with your friends from 12 to 2, you still are responsible for the homework. But you don't have to be with me. All right, let's look at the homework that's coming up for this week, just on this chart. Read the SAFE chapter. You will notice in your textbook that the chapters have different colors. Okay, I'm going to open it SAFE real quick. It's the first chapter. It is like a UT orange, burnt orange color. You know you're in the SAFE chapter because it says SAFE in the corner. Okay, you will be reading the SAFE chapter. I highly recommend that you use this as a checklist for yourself. So once you read the SAFE chapter, put like a check mark here so you know you've done it. Does that make sense? So if you know you've done it, you don't have to do it again. And you won't wonder if you did it. The next thing on here for this week, get a copy of your current first aid or CPR card. It is required that you have a first aid CPR card for where you work, okay? It has to be current. You need a copy of it. I don't want you to get the original, just a copy. So put the original card on a copy machine, make a copy, put the copy in this binder, then check it off. The next thing you're getting a copy of, your center's weekly menu or child feeding schedule. So if you're in an infant classroom, odds are you have a feeding schedule. If all your babies are only consuming bottles, I also want you to get a menu from a classroom that's eating some solid food. So we're going to be using this for a writing assignment. We can't talk about what kind of healthy food your center is serving if we're just talking about breast milk. We need some variety in there. Once you get the copy of the menu, the weekly menu, it goes in your binder. And you put a check mark. The next thing, get a copy of your classroom's weekly lesson plan. Okay? You should have a lesson plan for your classroom. Probably you do it for the month. That's okay, you can get a monthly one too, but a weekly one, and it should have like the objectives and stuff on it. And that goes in your binder. All right, the next two things require some work. The next one says write a summary, 1 page or less, of Texas legal requirements regarding child abuse and neglect, including mandated reporter. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Don't freak out. And then the last thing is make one posting to our class Facebook page and share what you like best about working with your infants or toddlers. All right, so those are all the things you're doing this week. So look up here where I'm swirling this around and highlighting. Homework is due by the next class. I think it would be best if we turned in homework by midnight on Thursday. So make yourself a note if you need to. Homework is due by midnight on Thursday. Friday morning, I will give you feedback for the homework. And then Friday afternoon, I'll send an update to you and your director, letting you know if you've completed all the homework assignments for the week. Okay. I will be posting our mandatory meetings on YouTube and sending you the link. So if something happens and you're like, I forgot what she said, I'll be posting them on YouTube for you. We might do a couple of the study halls on YouTube. I'm not sure. All right, fun facts. Make yourself a note. You can only miss 2 mandatory classes before you're dropped from the class. Two mandatory classes you can miss before you're dropped from the class. Okay. Let's see. I'm thinking that we're going to do little random call-ons to make sure that you haven't just turned on your computer and left to do your grocery shopping. So I'll randomly call in somebody that has a black screen that I don't see their face. I'll randomly call on them and give them a minute or 2 to answer. And if they don't answer, then their attendance doesn't count for that class. Okay, what else? For those 2 classes, if you miss a mandatory class, the way you're going to make it up is you can watch the video for the mandatory class, but you're also, each class has a chapter in this book you're supposed to read. If you miss the mandatory class, I will expect you to write me of notes about the chapter for that week. So that'll force you to read the textbook and pay attention to it. All right, this is KickUp. So once you create an account, you're going to be brought to a page that looks similar to this. And what you're going to want to do is browse events. I'm going to do a search and I'm going to put in the word infant. When I did that, you see how session 1 of spring, blah, 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 blah. This is our class, right? Spring 2022 Infant and Toddler CDA. So I would go to the main page. I'm going to show you that one more time because this is a little tricky. All right. When you type in the word infant in your search, odds are you'll get this session 1. You want to click underneath it where it says part of Infant and Toddler CDA. This is what you want to click on, not this. So if I click on this Infant and Toddler CDA, this whole class will come up where it says 13 events. And then on the right, it says register for all. That's what you want to do because you don't want to go in and register 13 times. You just want to do it once. If you've never been on KickUp before, you have to create an account first.
Okay, yes, because I
is kickup.co pre-K4SAREG. So REG for registration. Kickup.co, and I think that's a backslash, pre-K4SAREG. I'm going to click enter.
Yes, this is what my screen.
This is what it looks like. Are you a pre-K4SA employee? No, you are not. We don't serve infants and toddlers at our centers. You are not a pre-K4SA employee. Please select the age or grade levels that you serve. So some of you are just in infant classrooms, so you'd just put infant. If you're just in a toddler classroom, you'd put toddler. If you have a mixed age classroom with babies and toddlers, this is where you click. Are you new to the grade level this year? That means, have you started being an infant and toddler teacher this year? This year started 8 days ago. So if you have started being an infant and toddler teacher in the last 8 days, you would say yes. Years of teaching experience. How long have you been a teacher? I think right now I'm falling here. I refuse to do any more math that would make me fall over here. Do you have a CDA? I would think you do not have one yet because you are in a class for it. Please select your school district or organization. Some of you, your schools will be on here, like if you're from Books and Bids or Blessed Sacrament. Let's see, Healy Murphy's on here. Madison Square, Make-A-Wish, Marbach, Miller. Who else? St. Mary Magdalene, Yogi Land 2. If your center is not on here, click Other. Then your role. Are you the lead teacher? Are you an assistant teacher? Are you the director, assistant director? Do you own the school? Whatever. Pick which one belongs to you. Do you already have a KickUp account? I would think you probably don't. Put in your email, put in your telephone number, your full name. Do you work within the city of San Antonio? I think all of your childcare centers are within the city of San Antonio, so you'd say yes. If your childcare center is like in Helotes, that would be a no. And then you'd click submit. And once you submit, it should take you here where you can do the browse events and type in infant. To move over here now. All right, this is the first time I have tried doing a private Facebook group. I feel like I have accomplished it. This is the name of the group, Spring 2022 IT CDA. From what I understand, you can go like and search Facebook and type it in. Like here's a group I belong to. I can look at that way, but let me see. Spring 2022 IT CDA. Search. Let's see what kind of search results we get. So it should have something pop up where it's a private group and a way for you to request to join the group. Okay. So for those of you that are interested in this yellow book, it talks about the requirements to get an infant toddler CDA on pages 10 through 13. So if you look at page 10 at the top of the page in the yellow book, it says, before you apply for a CDA, you must have a valid high school diploma or a GED. You have to have a copy of this in your binder. So if you went to high school in a different country, a different state, you had a house fire and it's been burnt up, whatever reason you don't have a copy of your high school diploma or your GED, you need to get a copy. You should have a copy living in your file in your director's office because your director should have a copy of it. You don't want to put the actual diploma in your binder because something could happen to it. That's one of those documents that you really want to keep safe. So just make a copy of it. It needs to live in your binder to prove that you have a high school diploma or a GED.
And I have a question.
Let's hear it.
I have been through a 2 moving process last year, and I figured it would be in my storage where I put it. I haven't been able to find it. How would I get another copy of it? Because it's been since I got my GED back in 2009.
So number one, have you asked your director if they have a copy of it?
No.
They should have a copy of it in your file.
Okay, because they have me doing this class. I have not yet been able to work in a facility. They had me start this class first. So
Okay.
they never asked
They don't
me
have
for-
your paperwork yet.
Exactly.
Okay. You're gonna need that document even for working at a child development center
Okay.
to have it in your file. So find the program or the high school that you got that and start reaching out and doing some research.
Okay.
I can tell you that it is amazing some of the ways you can find documents. I have a father that's 91 that has contacted a school district in North Texas from 1930s and has managed to find some of his documents. So
okay. And if
there's
not,
hope.
I would have to redo my GED. Correct.
That would stink.
Yeah. So,
So do your best to find proof.
I would have to get the GED again before this course ends.
So they will not approve you for a CDA if you do not have a valid high school diploma or GED.
Okay.
Lisa, I know if you
Now it does say on this first paragraph, a GED or enrollment as a junior or senior in high school. Yep. Technical program in early childhood education is acceptable. I think most of us are out of high school though, so
yeah.
County. All right, so you do have to prove it. That's one of the things when they come to check your binder that they will check for. And if you don't have it, we can't.
And that's at the end of this course, which is about 3 months.
Say again?
And that's going to be at the end of this course?
At the end of the course, you will have a site visit where they will check all the things you did in your binder, including or GED.
Okay.
All right. The next thing on page 10 says you need to be able to speak, read, and write well enough in the language required at work. So that's either English or Spanish if you're teaching in Spanish or teaching in English. Unfortunately, I only speak English well enough to teach this course in English. I don't speak Spanish well enough to teach it in that language for you. I apologize. So you need to be able to understand my instruction well enough as well. Okay, setting. You have to be in a state-approved child development center. So for the site visit, you actually have to be working at a licensed center. You need to be, when they observe you, you're going to be the lead teacher in the classroom. You're going to be running the show for that 2 hours that they're observing you. So even if you are a floater, for the time they're observing you, you're going to be leading the classroom for a couple hours. You need to have a group of at least 3 children between birth and 36 months. They can come and observe you teaching in a 4-year-old classroom for this CDA in their toddler classroom. Let's see what else. Your center also has to have at least 10 children enrolled and at least 2 caregivers that work at the center.
Julia has a question.
Let's hear it, Julia.
Okay, so I'm a floater, right? And my question, it was about the homework. And I was wondering, do I still need to get do I still need to get a copy of the classroom's lesson plan?
Yes, ma'am, because we're going to use that for a writing assignment and it's required for the course.
Do I just go to like a random classroom and get it?
An infant toddler classroom would be best.
Oh, okay. That was my question.
Okay. Thank you, Charisma, also for pointing that out because I can't see the chat. Then the next one here says professional education. You must complete 120 clock hours of professional early childhood education. That's what this course is. You'll get a certificate at the end of the course that says you have 120 hours. That's why you have so much homework, to make up that 120 hours. All right, the next thing is on page 11, and it says you need 480 hours of experience working with infants and toddlers. Somebody, if you would please, get your calculator, type in 480 and divide it by 40. And tell
Miss
me what-
Miss Lillian.
One more time, Gloria.
I have to take a restroom break real quick.
Do it.
Okay.
So somebody take 480 and divide it by 40. What do you get?
You get 12.
12. That means you need to work 12 weeks at your center in an infant and toddler classroom by the end of the course. So it's not very much. It's like 3 months. Okay. I'm turning the page to page 12, and where it just goes in talking more about the homework assignments that are due. So if you think back or you look at the syllabus or the roadmap of this course, you will notice many things have either a CS or an RC written next to them. And you might be wondering, what on earth is this RCCS business? If you ever want more information about the RC and CS, it starts on page 14 in your yellow book. So if you turn to page 14 in your yellow book, you will see RC 1-1. And it says for RC 1-1, that talks about your CPR course that you need the proof. For funsies, when you read that, you will notice that it can't be an online training. So if you've done an online training, you need to make sure that you read page 14, RC 1-1, and make sure you have the correct certification for it. RC 1-2, that's something also that is homework for this week. It's also on page 14, and it talks about the feeding schedule and menu that's required. On page 15, RC 1-3, that's another homework thing this week. It talks about the sample weekly plan. So I'm not just making these things up to be mean. They're part of the required course, and we have to collect all of them to make sure that we do it correctly. So you have that RC 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3. Those are on page, and I just showed you in the yellow book. Requirement. Okay. Okay. So we're going to talk for a little bit about the SAFE chapter in the textbook. Again, that's the first chapter. That's one of our reading assignments this week, is the SAFE chapter. It is about, number one, keeping children safe in the classroom and when they're under your care, teaching children about safety, being a good safety model, responding to injuries and emergencies, and engaging families in safe practices. So in the National Association of Young Children, it talks about safety being the first priority of all teachers. Even though we always think, oh, I need to be teaching them something all the time, most basic level is safety. Everything else is frosting on top of that safety cake. For our course, we will be referring to the minimum standards. If you work in a child care center in the state of Texas, you will be using the minimum standards. Those are the rules that are the bar set by the state of this is what you must do in your center to keep children safe and healthy. The next one we will be referring to is Texas Rising Star. That is our state quality system. So if minimum standards are here and are required, if your center chooses to be a Texas Rising Star center, they have to apply, they have to be approved. And then they get another book of standards that are up here. So you still have to meet the minimum standards, but then they give you another layer of rules to make sure your center is of a higher quality. We're also going to be using Little Texans Big Futures, which is an online place that we're going to go to get goals for our activities and see developmental levels of children. Okay. So one thing to be aware of is your group size and your teacher-child ratio. Your classroom, I bet you are hear the words from your director all the time about we need to keep in ratio. What they mean by that is they're either using the minimum standard ratios or the Texas Rising Star ratios. And those could be different. The Texas Rising Star ones should be more strict than the minimum standards ratios. And that tells you how many children of an age can be with one grown-up. So if let's say you are in a 12-month, a baby classroom, it's 4-to-1. And if you're in a 3-year-old classroom, it's 9-to-1. And now I'm unsure if this is from license. I don't think this is a licensing one. This is probably Texas Rising Star. 9-to-1. But if you had a baby at the end of the day, join your 3-year-old class because that's the only baby left. Move your ratio back here. This is a fabulous pyramid of needs. This is something that you can probably refer to even as a grown-up. This is a pyramid of human needs. The most basic needs are the ones that need to be met first. All humans need food, water, they need to be sufficiently warm, and they need to be sufficiently rested. If that doesn't happen for a child, they can't do any of these other things. They can't feel and hang out in any of these other levels. They need to feel safe and they need to be secure. Now, this fun stuff up here, having friendships, having relationships, feeling accomplished, and being creative can't happen unless your children are safe first. So you can't progress up the pyramid until the level below it, the foundation, is taken care of. So the safety chapter is really focusing on how to keep the children in your classroom as good as or better than when they were dropped off to you at the beginning of the day. I can get into that. Let's see. All right, safety rules. Everybody's classroom should have a set of rules for the children. Those should be posted in your classroom. If you are in an infant classroom, you should still have some rules. They might only be for you, but you can still post them, talk about them with the children. For very young children, you can have anywhere from 1 to 5 rules. I would not recommend more than 5. They need to be very clear. They need to be precise. They need to make sense in your daily program. And I'm going to give you an example. Let me pull up some rules that I have used in a classroom, so you can see kind of what they look like. In the chat, if you would please, so let me pull up the chat so I can see it. Can you please write one of your safety rules for your classroom? One of your classroom rules. In the chat, please write one classroom rule that you have. Thank you for Stephanie remembering that it was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know where my brain went, but it wasn't remembering Maslow. All right, so I'm seeing the rules of gentle touches, feet on the floor, walking feet, no hitting, inside voice, hands to yourself, feet on the floor, gentle touches. So this is one that I made into a class book. So I would have this printed out and I would have it covered in plastic probably, and have it like in a toddler classroom. So being safe in our toddler classroom, here's the first rule. Walk in the classroom. And then I made it more book-like by having some text here. We move carefully to keep your body safe. And then I put a picture because our children can't read yet. How is it different to say walk in the classroom than say don't run? How are those two things different? I'm going to pull up the chat so I can see it.
It's different because you're telling them like it's easier and it's safer to walk instead of running or skipping or jumping or etc.
Okay, so if you told the children don't run, don't do it, you're not telling them what to do, right? You're just telling them stop moving.
Oh, okay.
You're not telling them, you know, this is how you should move. You are correct. You say walk in the classroom, you're giving them the example. This is what I want to see from you. So all of these are what we would call positive rules. We're not telling children don'ts, we're telling them what to do instead. So this first one is walk in the classroom. Another one I've heard is use walking feet, right? That's a popular one right now. Here's another one for a toddler classroom, because God help us, they will not leave anything climbable alone, right? If it can be climbed, they're going to try it. So one of the rules that I typically do in a toddler classroom is feet stay on the floor. A negative way to state that is don't climb. But instead, we're going to be positive and say feet stay on the floor. Or you could say feet on the floor. Okay, another one, a lot of people gave this. Gentle touches. In my toddler classroom, I broke it apart into gentle touches for hands, and then I have the picture for them, and then gentle touches for feet. I like that better than telling them no kicking, no hitting. All right. And then for the no biting one, here are the pages of the book that I made. Mouths are for eating, and mouths are for talking. Rather than don't bite, don't spit, don't lick that. Mouths are for eating, mouths are for talking. And that's it. And this is for a toddler class. For an infant class, I'd probably simplify it more because they're not going to be running, right? Odds are, if you got the babies, running is not an issue yet. You might have an issue with climbing, depending on your age group. Gentle touches are always a thing that are going to be needed in a classroom. Soft touches, gentle touches. So I'd probably go with gentle touches. And mouths are for eating or talking, because everything goes in a mouth as a baby, and you can't say don't put things in your mouth, but at a certain age they're going to start trying to chew on each other, and that's when you can start reinforcing that mouths are for eating or talking and not for chewing on your friends. Is there any question? I have the chat, I can see it right now, or you can shout out. Are there any questions of why you would want to make a rule positive instead of saying don't.
Because if you say don't, it sounds like they're saying you can't do it.
But you can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you that have worked in a very young toddler classroom, what's one of the first words that they learn?
No.
No.
No. Because they hear it all the time, right? No, 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 don't, stop, no. So you're trying to expand their vocabulary. So giving them these other words of what they can do is also helpful for expanding vocabulary. I like doing books like this. I also like putting it up on the wall with pictures. When you make classroom rules, do you just go over the classroom rules at the beginning of the school year and that's it?
No.
No, because you're going to have kids joining your classroom all the time, right? You don't just have like a regular public school where they just come and you have your class set for the whole school year. You're going to have new children coming all the time. You're also going to have kids forgetting, right? If it's not a rule that's used all the time, if it's not something that's a part of your classroom culture and environment, they're going to forget. So whenever the kids start to move around the classroom, I might remind them before anybody starts reading, remember to walk in the classroom. Remember, we're walking in the classroom. If you see them starting to get excited, playing patty cake or moving their hands around with blocks, reminding them that we use gentle touches. So before things happen, it's good to have a reminder to be proactive and remind them what the rules are in the classroom. All right. So when you have older toddlers, it's lovely to allow them to have a part in creating classroom rules. You could sit down with a group of them during lunch or something and talk about how we can keep each other safe. I don't think you would get very far with that discussion unless you had a group of 2-year-olds or older. But they feel ownership of something when they have a hand in creating it with you. And you can write it down with them. When they create it with you, they're going to say things like, don't bite, don't hit. So you can say, oh, you want the rule to be don't hit. So what can we do instead? Can we touch nicely? Can we have a gentle touch? And that's how you can get those positive rules in. You want to make sure your rules are a natural part of your program. Weave those safety rules into your discussion before the behavior starts going off the tracks. And even when the behavior does go off the tracks, you can do, a gentle reminder to them. Okay, stop, take your mouth off that person. Remember, mouths are for eating and talking. All right, if you look in your textbook, on page 23, 24, and it keeps going until, until 33. So 23 through 33, they have some checklists in your textbook. I'm going to get where I can see the chat again. Brilliant. All right. They have some checklists in your textbook. They talk about initial safety checks on page 23. Those should not really be something that you would have to worry about in your classroom because those are things that the director takes care of and licensing. However, some of these things are important for you. So let's look on page 23 in that initial safety checklist. For an infant classroom, it talks about crib mattresses are firm and fit tightly. There's less than 2 fingers width on all sides of the crib mattress in the crib. That's something that you as a teacher need to be aware of. Knowing that your tables and chairs are sturdy and stable is a good one for a teacher to know about. If you have any shelves or furniture that are coming apart or have sharp edges or have nails coming out of them, you need to be aware of. So it's not all on the director. The director is not in your classroom for 8 hours a day. They don't know when things start falling apart unless you tell them. On the monthly checklist, it talks about carbon monoxide detectors. It talks about phone numbers posted for emergency services. On page 24, it talks about your first aid kit being stocked, your evacuation procedures. It talks about your cribs having nothing in them but the baby. So you don't put toys and mobiles and stuff in the cribs with the babies. Yeah, so just looking at this, you can go through and see if there's anything that you should be adding to your safety checklist for your classroom. There's quite a few in here. Did somebody have a question? Liz, did you have a question? I saw you lit up.
No, I'm just reading that thing.
Okay. So quite a bit here. Talks about even the play structures, guardrails, having swings for infants that are fully enclosed and have seat belts, all sorts of fun things that you might not normally consider. That would be useful to know for your classroom. All right, I'm going to move on. If it'll let me. Okay. For teaching children about safety and modeling safe practices. So let's say you have a rule in your classroom that says feet on the ground. If you then, as a teacher, frequently climb up on the chair to get on top of where you keep things on top of a cabinet, are you modeling safety rules?
No.
No, so you need to be aware if you have a rule in your classroom, like don't climb on things, instead keep your feet on the ground, then as the teacher, you need to model that. You need to keep things down where you don't need to climb on top of objects to reach them. And if you do have to climb on top of something, you need to do it when kids are, all of them are sleeping, they can't catch you doing it, or they're not in the classroom to see you climb up on that ladder or on that chair. Same thing for running in the classroom. If you have a rule of no running in the classroom, you can't be running around in your classroom all the time. In a dire emergency, by all means, run and catch the child before they fall over, but try to model what you're preaching, practice what you preach. In your first aid and CPR course, it talks about how to handle emergencies. And I'm not going to get into that again about how to clean out wounds and such. I'm trying to flip the page. Will it let me? Yes. All right. We have certain emergencies that can happen in your center that you do need to be aware of. I am sure all of your centers now have some sort of active shooter scenario. So if something goes terribly wrong, how to lock down in your classroom. So you need to know what those are. You need to know your evacuation procedures for fire or gas leaks and such. If you evacuate, you need to have a plan for how you can contact all your families. So you should have a backpack with your first aid kit and also with like your emergency cards with the contact information for all the children. Because if there's a fire and you evacuate the school, you grab your backpack, grab the kids, and head out of the building. You don't want to be trying to figure out once you're in the parking lot, oh shoot, how do I contact Jamie's mom? I don't remember what her number is. It should be all in that backpack. So you should have those plans, and you should practice your evacuations with the babies and the toddlers, so everybody knows what that looks like. Same thing for lockdown drills or bad weather drills. Practicing them ahead of time is very helpful, so the children know that that's something that you do and what happens. All right, we're not going to get into that yet. Other things to be aware of, especially during the winter season, is carbon monoxide. That is something that can happen, especially when we're heating our centers. And let me see if I can share a carbon monoxide short video with you.
Safety Seymour at your service. I'm on a mission to recruit CO safety assistants to help on my quest to rid homes of a very dangerous threat. The threat of CO. That's carbon monoxide.
So if I want to become a CO safety assistant, where do I start?
Why not start by thinking about how you stay safe at home?
Cool. But I already feel pretty safe in my home.
That's good. Then let's see how you get on with a few challenges. Sounds like someone's left the bath taps on. How would you prevent a flood in your bathroom?
That's easy. Just make sure the taps are turned off when you've run the bath.
Uh-oh, someone's seen your back door is unlocked and has decided to have a peek inside your house.
Not if we lock the doors when we go out or are all upstairs.
And a burning candle next to a curtain doesn't look very safe.
No trouble. I'll just blow it out. Problem solved.
Fabulous. We keep ourselves safe in our homes in all sorts of ways. But what about dangers that aren't so easy to see?
If you can't see something, doesn't that mean it's not there?
Not always. Think about it. We're surrounded by radio waves and Wi-Fi to play our favorite games and listen to music, but we can't see those waves, can we?
They're not dangerous, though.
That's true, but carbon monoxide is. It's an invisible gas created when boilers, cookers and heaters aren't burning fuel correctly.
Crikey, that sounds bad.
Very bad. Carbon monoxide steals the oxygen in the air, so there's less around for living things, including you.
Yikes.
It can make you very ill indeed if you breathe it in, or worse.
Then we need to get it out of our homes, or make sure it can escape outside. But if you can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it or touch it, how can we find it?
With a very clever gadget. A carbon monoxide alarm.
Cool.
A carbon monoxide alarm is a bit like a smoke alarm, but instead of detecting smoke, it detects
carbon monoxide.
Bingo! And every house should have one.
So how does it work?
You put it in your home, switch it on, and then if carbon monoxide is detected, it gives you a warning. If you ever hear the alarm, tell an adult and leave the house until it has been checked by a gas-safe registered engineer. Keep yourself safe and your family out of harm. Get yourself a carbon monoxide alarm. Right, got to go. In case I'm not around to help, it's a good idea to ask your parents to get a carbon monoxide alarm. Then you too can be a CO safety assistant.
Thanks, Safety Seymour. See you soon.
Safety Seymour, CO hero.
Okay, I absolutely adore that. I don't know why. I think it's the accents or something. But let's talk for a minute about carbon monoxide. That is one of the topics covered in your SAFE chapter. Does everybody remember Snowvid that we had within like last year, right? Last February. Do you remember hearing on the news how people turn on like their gas appliances, or they'd go in their car in the garage to try to heat up and they'd end up dying? That was because of this carbon monoxide. If you have a carbon monoxide problem in your center, some of the things you're going to notice is that you and the children are going to start having headaches, be dizzy, start going to sleep, and you can also start vomiting or have seizures. So if it's just one person, it's probably not carbon monoxide. But if you notice your group is all starting to come down with that dizziness, sick, wanting to lay down and go to sleep type thing, take everybody outside. If it starts clearing up immediately, you know that something's really sideways there. Then you would call 911, you'd tell, get everybody out of your center and get in the good air. Nothing is 100%. So even if you do have that carbon monoxide alarm, maybe it's in the wrong spot in your center, or maybe the batteries hadn't been checked recently and it went dead. So that's one of the things to be aware of. The next one in your textbook that it talks about is talking about choking, suffocation, and strangulation. Such happy topics, right? I'm so sorry. You picked the safe chapter. It's the first one in the book. I'm sorry. We're just going to get maudlin for a minute and we'll come back at the end. So choking is a huge deal for infant and toddlers. Why? Babies put every single thing that is fittable into their mouth to sample it. That's one of the ways they experience the world, is by putting it in their mouth and tasting it. So there are a couple ways that you can check the toys in your room to make sure they're an appropriate size to be available in your classroom. One is the fancy way, and you could get one of these little suckers. This is a choking tube. I bought this one off of Kaplan. I'm sure you could get them other places if you really wanted the fancy one. And this fancy thing is such that you will get a toy that you have in your classroom. And if it fits into the tube, it's not suitable for children under 3 years old. This doesn't fit. But so theoretically, it's okay. That's pretty close. I don't know if I'd trust it. Okay, so if it fits in here, it's not okay to be in your classroom. It's a choking hazard. If you don't buy this, there is a significantly cheaper thing you can get. Most people will recognize this. This is a toilet paper tube. So it is a little wider, but not by much. Because this is a little bigger, it's even safer, right? So some of these things that I did, the little ball still goes straight through, the little binder clip straight through. Let's see about the frog. I don't know if I'd trust the frog. The frog is iffy. Go around your classroom with your toilet paper tube and check for choking hazards. Frequently, when people from the state or city are wanting to inspect your classroom, they'll have one of these fancy things. But if you have a good old toilet paper tube, it'll work even better, because the fancy thing even goes through the toilet paper tube. So if it doesn't fit in here, it's not a choking hazard. You're good. Let's see, what else? Detachable parts. So in this class, we're going to talk about using real materials. A real material is something that is not made for children, something that's made for normal use. Let's see, what could I grab easily that would be a real material? All right, I've got 3 real materials here to share with you. One is a rock. It's a real material. It's not made for children. Doesn't fit in my choking tube. I'm feeling confident with the rock. Another real material, a spoon. Because the spoon is bigger and longer, you're okay. It might fit through this, but since it's so big, you'd probably be okay. You could even use a wider one like a soup spoon and you'd be okay. A problem with a real material is like this. This is a paintbrush, real material, not made for children. Has anybody ever painted with one of these before? What's one of the problems with this kind of cheap paintbrush?
The little hairs come off.
Right? It starts decomposing on you. Right? And if you have a real material like this in your classroom, kids can pull off chunks of it or peel off a piece of it and eat that. And if they do that, it's a choking hazard. Okay? So if you choose to put real materials in your classroom, which they want you to do for these like higher level certifications, they want you to find some good real materials. Make sure you get ones that can't be pulled apart easily. And if you do choose to use this, say you're doing an activity where you put these in a sensory table with some water, that's fine. But I would say check on it every hour or so and make sure the kids aren't starting to pull any pieces off. All right. Oh, Miss Lydia, she's so cute. Okay, sorry, distracted by cuteness, moving on. The next bit is strangulation. Can anybody in an infant classroom give me an example of something that the children wear that would be a strangulation hazard? You can put it in the chat or just call it out.
Scarf.
Say again?
A scarf.
A scarf, totally. This time of year, scarf is a strangulation hazard.
Pacifier,
Clips?
yeah, that.
Pacifier clips, strangulation hazard, definitely.
And then the bibs.
Bibs, yep. Hoodies with those strings to draw strings.
Yeah.
Strangulation hazard. I see Angelica is twisting something. I'm trying. Is that a drawstring,
Oh,
Angelica?
yeah, it's the sweater.
Yep. So strangulation hazards. Does that mean you throw out all of the scarves and everything that families send in? Probably not. But you need to be aware of what is a strangulation hazard, so you are really paying attention to children that have those items on their clothing so nothing untoward happens. If a child has drawstrings on a hoodie or something, I would not put them to sleep wearing something with drawstrings, right? Because if they turn over, that could be an issue, and you're not watching them as carefully when they're sleeping. So if they have a strangulation hazard that they're wearing, it doesn't go in the crib with them or on their cot. When they're playing outside, if you have slides, strangulation hazard is that the drawstring or the scarf gets stuck on the top of the slide and the child goes down the slide and it gets pulled up. So those are things to be aware of. If you have any kind of slide or a moving part where the child goes down, be aware that they can get caught at the top, and that's a strangulation hazard. All right, what else? Oh, let me share you a handout I have. Good handout, I think we should see it. Okay, great. Are you all seeing the Safe Kids poster now? All right.
Yeah.
So fun and excitement. It talks about being on the lookout for magnets. So there's a lot of magnets in toys right now for children. Be aware that if anything starts breaking apart and these magnets get exposed, you should stop using it. It says inspect games or toys that include magnets to make sure nothing's missing or getting dislodged. If a child swallows a magnet, you need to seek medical attention. It says keep small magnets away from children, including magnets found in construction sets, children toys, refrigerator magnets, rare earth magnets like buckyballs. So sometimes we'll use the ABC magnets like on the door of the classroom or something. You need to be aware that those little magnets, when you have kids that are putting things in their mouth, that shouldn't be a part of your class. It also talks about for strangulation, keeping cords out of reach. So everybody knows that your window coverings, those blinds that have the cord, that needs to be tied up out of children's reach. It talks about perspective taking. So as an adult, odds are you are more than 4 feet tall, correct? Your children are less than 2 feet tall. So what you need to do every once in a while is lay or sit on the floor of your classroom and look around. Things that you can't see when you're 5 feet in the air, you can easily see when you're down close to where the children are. So if something rolls underneath a shelf, or let's say a button pops off of an adult's jacket and it rolls underneath a shelf, you can see it down there. What else? Let's get this one. This one talks about balloons. So you all should be aware that latex balloons are a choking hazard. So you should never be using balloons with young children. Let's see what else. We talked about the small parts tester, your toilet paper tube. Food size is an issue. And the last one I wanted to talk to you about are button batteries. So a button battery is, if you all have seen it before, like on a key ring for a car that has the lock and unlock feature, that has a little circular battery in it. A lot of the things, real materials that we'll give to infants and toddlers have that little button magnet in it because they like to hear the sound. And kids can pry that open and swallow the button magnet, which is very corrosive and poisonous. So nothing with button batteries for children. The last thing is food as a choking hazard. So I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger for you so you can see some of the things it recommends that you not feed to children under, in your age group. So if your child is 4 years of age or younger, you need to either take extra safety measures or don't feed them the foods at all. Hot dogs. Why are hot dogs dangerous?
They can choke on the weenies if you give them too big of a size.
Because they're already the perfect shape to block an airway, and they're very dense. The hot dog, it doesn't have a lot of air or fluff in it. So if it gets stuck, it's not changing shape and moving anywhere. So if you cut up a hot dog, you have a hot dog, you can't cut it like this because you're just creating a bunch of big circles to block their airway. Instead, you have to cut it in long strips and then you can go sideways if you want. But keeping in mind that a baby's airway is only like 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch is less than the tip of your pinky. That's all they're working with. It can stretch to accommodate that hot dog, but once it gets stuffed in there, it's not moving. So if you feed them anything, even like a blueberry is a lovely little circle, right? But it's 1/4 of an inch or bigger, and that could get stuck. You would need to cut it up. Blueberries, grapes, same thing. Nuts and seeds, chunks of meat or cheese, hard, gooey, or sticky candy, popcorn, chunks of peanut butter, raw vegetables, chewing gum, marshmallows. And for a different reason, we don't feed babies honey. Has everybody heard that one? That babies can't eat honey? Honey has a toxin in it for babies. So let me pull that up real quick for you. All right, this is kidshealth.org. So I'm feeling it's a safe website that we can trust. says babies younger than 1 year old should not be given honey. Because Clostridium bacteria that cause infant botulism usually thrive in soil and dust, they can contaminate some foods, such as honey in particular. Okay, so that's one of the things that you can't feed babies for safety reasons. All right. It also talks in your book about food safety. Everybody should have allergies posted for your classroom in there. Usually a picture of the child and their allergy, what they cannot eat, should be posted in your classroom. Why do you need the picture? Because someday you may be out sick and somebody else is taking over your classroom and they don't know everybody. And let's say you're in a classroom of 2-year-olds and the sub says, okay, it looks like Charisma is allergic to milk. Which one of you is Charisma? If you have a group of 2-year-olds, you might have 5 of them raise their hand. So it's always good to have a picture there with you. Food allergies are written down on the enrollment information that families share with the director at the beginning. That should be shared with you. You don't let a family or a child tell you face to face, nope, they're not allergic to milk anymore. You're like, okay. You get the director in on it. The director's going to want something from a doctor probably saying that this child's no longer allergic to milk. You're not going to take, Charisma, I'm just going to keep using you as an example because your name's right there on my list here. You're not going to take 2-year-old Charisma's word for it that grandma gave her milk last week and she was fine. It needs to be in writing from the family to the director to you. Because you know easily how badly that would go if the child's misunderstood. Maybe grandma gave her almond milk. All right. The next thing it talks about is safe sleep. Has everybody done some sort of training for safe sleep? For those of you that haven't, if you're in an infant classroom, you're going to need to do one. You can contact me and I can help you figure that out if you like. Safe sleep is to reduce SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. That is when a baby dies and they can't figure out what caused it. They will say, nope, must be sudden infant death syndrome. To cut down on the possibility of that being a thing for you, that is one of the reasons that for the safety check, you make sure the mattress is a tight fit in the crib. You make sure your mattress sheet is a tight fit so it doesn't bunch up around the baby. You make sure you don't have anything extra in the crib other than the baby that they could roll over and press their face into and suffocate. Back to sleep is the standard of care for infants. You always put the baby on their back in the crib. Until the baby's able to reliably roll over by themselves, you make sure they are sleeping on their back. Once they are reliably able to roll over, then you can revisit and say, you know what, I'm going to put them on their back, but if they roll, I know that they can keep rolling and it'll be fine. A lot of centers will actually put a sign on the crib. It's like when the baby is not able to roll or is able to roll, so that a substitute coming in knows, do I need to adjust the baby? So if you have a baby that doesn't roll yet, they should have a sign on their crib, kind of letting everybody know this one needs to sleep on their back. Regardless, you always put the baby to sleep on their back. If they change positions, and they're old enough to do it, that's their choice and that's fine. Other things to be aware of that are just really hard for infant teachers. I understand, I have been there. We have to let them sleep in the crib. I know how hard that is. You worked for like half an hour getting them to go to sleep in the stroller, taking them on a walk, they're finally asleep, you don't want to move them. Understand you don't want to move them. However, it's licensing, it's a rule, and it's safe practice. So once you stop your stroller ride, scoop up that sleeping baby, do whatever kind of internal mantra you need to try to keep that baby sleeping, transfer them to the crib, and they finish their nap in the crib. You are, according to licensing, not supposed to keep a baby restrained in a device, even sleeping. I think it's for over 15 minutes. For those my infant teachers, is that the correct time or is it shorter than that?
That's right, 15 minutes.
15 minutes tops, you can restrain them. And after that, you need to let them be on their tummy, let them be experiencing the world or sleeping in their crib. Okay. A problem that has, so I've lived in Michigan quite a few years, and a problem we had, especially up there, is in Illinois as well, because it's so cold, is parents would bring the baby into the classroom in the car seat with a blanket over the car seat to keep them warm. And they'd say, the baby's sleeping, don't disrupt them. And the caregiver would, not disrupt them and not check. So what you would need to do as a caregiver in that situation is take that baby out of the car seat, even if they're sleeping, and transfer them to a crib. If you don't, there have been a lot of examples of babies suffocating in those car seats covered with the blanket. All right, what else? Thermostat in the classroom needs to be at a comfortable level for a lightly clothed adult, because overheating is also one of the contributing factors to SIDS. I need to turn on my heater because I'm getting cold. Okay. It's page 4 in your binder. It says RCV1-3, which is Roman numerals for RC6-3. That is going to be your homework writing for this week. And let's take a few minutes to get that started together. All right. So turn to RC6-3, and I want you to open your yellow book to page 15. Is it page? I'm wrong. It's not page 15. It is page 16. I apologize. Page 16 in your yellow book and page 4 in your binder. It says RCV1-3. If you're looking on page 16, it's the last entry on page 16, RCV1-3. It says you need the summaries of the legal requirements in your state regarding child abuse and neglect, including contact information for the appropriate agency in your state and mandatory reporting guidelines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in mandated reporter, Texas, and see what comes up. All right, when I typed in mandated reporter, Texas, so you might want to make yourself a note of this if you choose not to stay on and do this writing with me. If you choose to leave at noon and not do the writing with me, you are going to need to know this. So in Google, I typed in mandated reporter, Texas. The first thing that comes up for me is a website that's DFPS, and it says when and how to report child abuse. I'm going to click on that. Oh, I don't want to subscribe. Thank you. All right, I'm going to look again at what it's requiring of me. So legal requirements, contact information, and mandated reporter guidelines. Okay, so that is what we're looking for. I'm going to pull back up that DFPS website. And I'm going to pull the information, the contact information first. because I think that's the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest to do. So let's start there. Here we go. I might even include the if it's an emergency thing. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it in Word. I'm also going to pull up the website information and copy that over. Okay, so there's that. For the online, it says it is for children over the age of 5, non-emergency. So I don't even know if I would use that. Right here, I can use this. I like how that's phrased. Actually use this. And it is okay to use the same words that they use on the website for this writing assignment. That is okay. So instead of this, I'm going to do this. So here is our contact information. So that covers this part in the parentheses. That's done. I'm going to scratch it out. Now for the summaries of legal requirements in your state regarding child abuse and neglect. All right, let's go back to the website. All right. Here you go. Texas law requires that any person suspecting that a child has been abused or neglected must immediately make a report. Copy. Paste. I'm going to go back into the screen share and talk about that professional thing and grab that as well. Woo. I'm going to take out this bit because I don't think we have to know the numbers, but you can leave it in. That'd be fine too. Okay. I'm going to go back to DFPS website and see if there's anything else that we need to know. Important to make the report as soon as possible. I think something about the details would be good to know in there. Let's see. When you make a report, give as much information as you can. Copy. This is one of the few things that copy and paste is really a friend on. I'm going to cut it down a little bit. Okay. Legal requirements regarding abuse and neglect. We do have that mandated reporter. That's this, that you have to do it as a daycare professional. All right. I honestly think, so we have mandated reporter, legal requirements. I think that's it. So I'm going to take this back off. And I think this would do it. So I have call the Texas Abuse Hotline if your situation is urgent and needs to be investigated within 24 hours. Call 911 if it's an emergency or life-threatening situation. Then I have the website. And you could make a note here for children, for reporting for maybe children over 5 years old. That's kind of a reminder for yourself that the website's not a good one for you in your classroom. Texas law requires that any person suspecting a child has been abused must immediately make a report. Professionals must make a report no later than 48 hours after. I think that can be rewritten better. 48 hours after first suspecting abuse or neglect. You can't delegate or tell somebody else to do it for you. I'm going to take out this oral and written report because since that's not something that's required anymore, I'm just going to take it out. And I think for me, that's all that I would include in it. If you have more information that you want to include on there, like what constitutes abuse and neglect, by all means, you can put that in. But this is the most important part, and they want to just make sure that you know who to contact, how to contact, when to contact. Now, yeah, I like that having as much information as possible on there as well. So this is a pretty straightforward one for a first writing assignment. You don't have to be creative with it at all. You're just using the website and transferring information.
Miss Lillian.
Yes.
And so, sorry, because I did start the class a little later than I joined, I think around like 11:30. We're sending this to you on your email that you provided for us?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
By Thursday midnight.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. This is the quickest writing assignment we will do in this class. I am pleased that it's the first one for y'all. You'll be able to enjoy and frolic for the rest of your Saturday. Monica, yay!
I have a question.
What?
I have a question. Even if you helped us with this, do we have to reword this?
No. And for this one, you do not.
So we can just send it in like this.
Yep.
Okay.
The reason you're sending it to me is that we're getting you in the practice of accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes life is really busy and we tell ourselves, you know what, we're going to do that later, but life doesn't usually stop being busy and later never comes. So if we're just in the habit, everything's turned in on Thursday, then you're done. You've done it. You don't have to revisit it and have your filled up that you're putting things off.